Okay, what do you love about poetry?
I love that there's no rules in poetry. I'm trying to get into writing fiction and other types of literature, but I just come back to poetry all the time because it's just no rules. It's like you can rhyme, you can not rhyme, you can make up your own words, and it's just poetry. But I like that about it, and I also like the fact that it's, like I said before, it's therapeutic and it's healing to me. It's like a lot of times you just can't write a letter, or you can't write just anything. It has to be in vivid, creative language to get it off your chest sometimes. I think when you get up and perform poetry and you can just touch one person in the audience, that's the real goal there with poetry. And with the stuff that I've written, if I see somebody's face light up or they come to me afterwards and say, I went through that same thing, thank you for saying that, it's like, man, poetry has a way to really touch people, and I like that about it.
So has your writing, obviously you're older now, but has it changed from the time you were, or did you always write the same way?
A lot of my poetry in the beginning was about the people that I dealt with. It's like that's really all I knew in middle school and high school, like, oh, my boyfriend and my best friend and things like that. But now I see that I'm writing about, my world around me and like the things that I see and the stuff that affects me that way. It's not really like I'm trying to get back at somebody through my poetry or nothing like that, but it's kind of like exploring my world and writing it and showing other people, like, there's just the stuff that goes around, just not people, like about the orange that sits on the table or just anything, just to make it vivid and come alive through words. So back in the day it was pretty much about like my family and friends, and now it's about everything that I go through all the time.
Right. Now, what's the biggest misconception about poetry?
The biggest misconception would definitely be, I've heard from people that, oh yeah, poetry is just dreadlocks and incense.
Right, right.
And so, I mean, it's really, there are some people that go through that, or they have their whole persona like that, but it's also, I get up on the stage and people look at me like I don't have nothing to say because I have permed hair and
right.
I wear a dress.
Right.
A lot of people think that poets, they're very depressed and they're very sad and everything. I have lots of I'm so happy poems in here that it's ridiculous. And it's like, poetry to me is an expansion of all your emotions, not just the times you're depressed. So I definitely want to say that, poetry is not, just some depressed, starving artist sitting in their corner writing all day. It's a kaleidoscope of all different kinds of emotions, all wrapped up into one in a very descriptive language.
So that being said, I guess, what inspires your poetry?
My poetry is inspired by just everyday life, and also the thoughts that I can change somebody else's mind.
Right.
A lot of people, they grow up, they're raised a certain way, and they might think that this path is the only path. But if I can write a poem to make them like open their eyes to something else, that'd be like, whoa, that's real cool. It's like if I can show you a world that you might not have seen before, if you've grown up in the hard city streets all your life, and here's me, a suburbanite Augusta person, trying to show you my world, and that's a wonderful thing if you can open up another life to somebody.
Yeah, that's true too. So, who are some of your influences? Who are some of your favorite poets, known and unknown?
Oh, okay. Well, I've just started like reading up on the classic poets. That's one of my downfalls that I didn't do back in middle school and high school. It's like I just thought, oh yeah, I'm a poet, I can start right now. But you have to research the classics.
Yeah, me too.
Let's see. I just started reading up on Anne Sexton and Charles Bukowski, and let's see. Everyone compares me to Nikki Giovanni, and I definitely like her work. Maya Angelou is okay. And I hate to, I'm probably going to get backlash for this, but, everyone says Maya Angelou is the biggest, most wonderful poet in the world, but some of her stuff I really don't relate to. And I think this is because of the age. Right. It's like, most of her stuff was written in the 60s, and I wasn't even born then. Right. So I'm really leaning towards the...
But I agree with you on that. Some of it I don't even get. She writes like Toni Morrison to me.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, I just don't get it. But like you said, I think it's the age gap and generational issues there.
You know, of course, everybody in the Quality Poet Society. You know, I gotta give us props because, man, you know, I've been reading Cambridge's stuff all over the web, and Maisha's whole book I have at home, and it's kind of like, man, you know, reading Namaste Mose is like, oh. Okay. So I'm really inspired by my friends and like the I guess you call them the contemporary poets of the day that's just, you know, so hungry to learn how to perfect their craft and learn how to, you know, put words together really, really descriptively. It's like, man, you know, just going to the poetry shows and things like that, and it's just, it makes you just feel good to see people, you know, getting their words out like that.
Do you think it's easier for you to express yourself on paper than it is in person? I mean, in terms of...
As you can tell, I'm not even looking at the camera. It's like, you know, I've been growing up really not looking at the people I talk to, but I can write you a really descriptive email. I can write you a letter. It's going to be wonderful, but it's still kind of like the backlash of the shyness coming back. It's, you know, you have to have the confidence. I can get up on a stage in front of, you know, probably 50, 60 people and just go all crazy, but if it's just me and you or just one or two people, I'm like, okay, well... So definitely I find myself, you know, in my books and in my words and my poetry expressing myself a lot better than me having to sit down and think of it on the quick, you know.
Exactly, and I think most people have that issue. Most entertainers have that issue.
Right.
So I don't think you're the only one out there that has that same
like
problem.
I got my dark shades. It's like you have to wear your sunglasses when you're doing poetry so nobody can see you really.
You know, and hey, if you feel comfortable, you know, I'm just kidding. But no, I think that it's important as writers to be able to express yourself on paper, and it is harder because I find myself getting more comfortable in front of the mic.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you said, it's easier to be in front of the mic in front of an audience than it is to be one-on-one with another person. So, and I'm trying to develop more performing. So I kind of been watching you, you know, especially with the memorizing. I'm still getting that. I can interpret it when I'm reading it, but that's what my next question is, do you have an issue with, do you think poets should recite? I mean, should memorize their poems as opposed to reading, or what do you think? I mean,
I think that I believe memorization is probably the better way to go, because when you're, I had an email today from a lady from the Quality Poet Society, like one of the other members, and she's like, well, I want to get up and perform, but my hands are just so shaky. And I'm just like, well, if you didn't have any paper to shake, then you wouldn't be, you know. So I think without the paper, without you having to, you know, find your line and everything like that, you can put more dramatic, you know, theatrical types of things in it. It might come out, when you're performing it, it might come out more like a performance instead of just I'm reading a poem. Now, when you're doing like a book signing or something like that, so, you know, some poems are meant to be read, and some poems, you know, if you got it down that you don't have to skip over lines and things like that, then that's fine. But if you're doing a performance, it should be a performance, you know, without a paper and without, you know, having to rely on your crutch, you know.
Not condemning the other.
Exactly, not condemning paper poets. I'm just saying that's a good way to start, but you want to kind of graduate up into memorization so that way you can show people what you're saying.
Right, exactly. Okay, Lady V, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you censor yourself when you're writing?
Yes. And not when I'm writing my poetry, but when I'm performing it, I do. Because there's some poems I have that I don't really want to share with perfect strangers. You know, there's some poems that are in my book that, you know, you can read about, give me feedback, and, you know, tell me about it later. But I'm not going to get up on stage and start, like you said, you're not going to get up there and start just bawling and crying even though you have.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of like, if I have a very personal poem, or my brother died in '99, so it's like if I have any of my poems that I wrote about him, I'm definitely not going to bring those to Sip Coffee Houses. I won't want to share that part of me with a lot of people that I don't know. But when I'm writing poetry, that's the great thing about poetry. You can write it, and it can be in your notebook, and you can come back to it and reminisce and remember. But, you know, you don't have to share that with, you know, Joe Blow that you don't know across the street.
But do you have any poems that are in your books that you may have regretted putting in there? Like, I wish I hadn't put that in there.
Some of Adonis's poems are, it's like he's got one in there about a breakup from another girlfriend that he had in the past, and it kind of is sort of related to what we went through. So I was like, well, I don't know if I want to have people to read that.